Hello and welcome back to International School History Teacher. This is the last in the series of 6 lessons dedicated to the fundamental issues that revolve around the question of what is history. Now in this lesson I'm going to complete the defense of history that I began in the last lesson, on this occasion explaining why history is important because it's hard to do properly. I mean, it takes a lot of work. And that if historians didn't exist, there'd be nobody stopping anybody else from just making it all up. Anyway, I also get to sing a song by Billy Bragg, so that's good. And anyway, on with the lesson. Heritage is easy. History, in contrast, is hard. Or rather, the historical dimension to heritage is easy. Heritage cherry picks from a past that has already been neatly sourced and it uses what it fancies, for whatever reason. It is not concerned with the past in itself, but only how the past can be used in the present. And as we saw in the last lesson, in our 21st century world, heritage is absolutely everywhere. As in the words of the poet, the past is always trying to knock through into the present.
Colonial Williamsburg welcomes you. This orientation will help you prepare for your journey to the past.
The past is always knocking incessant, trying to break through into the present. The past is always, the past is always, the past is always.
In contrast to heritage, real history is really hard. It's really hard going. I know I couldn't do it, but I admire those who do. Most historians are not Eric Hobsbawm or Orlando Figes. They don't get to write these popular best-selling historical works that, everybody gets to read. Most historians write fairly dry accounts of their detailed findings in professional journal articles and in monographs that only other professional historians read. As the French author Flaubert once said, writing history is like drinking an ocean and pissing a cupful. Being an historian is, well, a methodical, sometimes lonely existence of reading and checking and double checking and immersing yourself in the past and trying to forget the present and trying to empathise with the dead, writing up really carefully and reaching qualified judgements scrupulously, whilst providing explicit, accurate references for every claim that you make. The American historian William Dunning provides a really useful example of this sort of hard work. He discovered through careful archival research and comparison of handwriting that Andrew Jackson's first message to Congress had in fact been drafted by George Bancroft. How much time must this comparison have taken? How many samples of handwriting had Dunning had to review? The end result is relatively trivial, but it's also central to the historical process because it is not only new, it is also true. The uncovering of new truths is a significant part of what doing history is all about. It's a cumulative process. Over time and through history, we come to know more about the past than we once did. It's far easier not to bother with monotonous archival research or to write about the people in the past as if they're just like us. It's far easier not to provide those detailed footnotes or just select the lessons of the past because they suit our present needs. But that's not history. That's heritage.
The past is always.
But history can also be hard because historians have to do unpopular things like challenging popular myths. What you tend to learn as a history student is that nothing is as simple as it seems. And constantly pointing that out to your friends can get just a little bit tiring for them.
Crop notation in the 14th century was considerably more widespread after John Lloyd invented the patent crop rotation. Yes! I knew it! I bloody knew it! You didn't. You said 1172. That's not a bit like John.
More importantly, when those in positions of political or economic power tell stories about the past that are meant to justify their actions, it is only the professional historian, the professionally trained historian, who has the real authority to challenge them and their myths.
I'm a student of history. 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 I'm a student of history.
Tonight, British servicemen and women are engaged from air, land and sea. Their mission? To remove Saddam Hussein from power and disarm Iraq of its weapons of mass destruction.
If we are wrong, we will have destroyed a threat that at its least is responsible for inhuman carnage and suffering. That is something I am confident history will forgive.
I'm a student of history. I'm a student of history.
For all of this, I express more sorrow, regret, and apology than you may ever know or can believe.
I'm a student of history. I'm a student of history.
I took that picture and I took it around 4 Beijing universities, those that had been most instrumental in the protests in 1989, and I showed it to 100 students. And I was really surprised at the level of ignorance. Most of them just looked at it with completely blank faces, no flicker of recognition whatsoever. People asked me questions like, is it Kosovo? Is it South Korea? One person said, it looks like Tiananmen, but it can't be. Out of 100 students, only 15 recognized that image.
I'm a student of history. I'm a student of history.
And if we vote leave and take back control, I believe that this Thursday can be our country's Independence Day.
We're not leaving the EU because we don't like the smell of French cheese. We're leaving the European Union because we don't like being told what to do by an unelected bureaucracy in Brussels. And
for the UK, I think it's probably the worst deal in history.
I'm a student of history. I'm a student of history.
We have launched an unprecedented economic boom.
I've done more in 500 days than any president has ever done in their first 500 days.
I can be more presidential than any president that's ever held this office. That I can tell you.
I'm the most transparent president probably in the history of this country.
According to the Washington Post fact checker, President Trump has now made 9,014 false or misleading claims in his first 773 days in office.
And this is something else that can make history hard. Historians play the role of professional skeptics. They're often charged with being unpatriotic or disloyal. For those in power and defending the status quo, the way the world is, history can be a dangerous subject, and historians can be dangerous people because history teaches that the world hasn't always been like this, that change has happened. And of course, by implication, change can happen again.
Standing as congressman, please heed the call. And stand in the doorway to block at the hall. For he who gets hurt will be he who has stalled. There's a battle outside, it's raging. And so shut your windows and rattle your walls. For the times, they're changing. Times, they're changing. Times, they're changing.
Good history is not fiction. Good history is concerned with facts about real events that really actually happened. Events cannot be invented that did not happen, nor can the chronology of those events be reversed. There are real limitations to the narratives that can be told about the past, and those limitations, they're fixed by the facts. There was a revolution in Cuba, and then there was a Cuban Missile Crisis, and then President Kennedy was assassinated. You can't mess with that. You can't change the order. Those events happened. As the historian G.M. Trevelyan once argued, the poetry of history does not consist of imagination roaming at large, but of imagination pursuing the fact and fastening upon it. For any claim the historian makes about the past, they must provide evidential research, support from that historical record. And the historian must be open and accurate about this. The historian must provide clear referencing to allow the authenticity of the apparently original source to be verified. And of course to allow their interpretive reading of that source to be checked, to be analysed. Now, one of the negative consequences of the internet revolution of the last 20 years or so has been the decline in the importance of the authority of the published book. I mean, that's the point. Authority was once more or less guaranteed by the published book. Now, any fool can publish their views about the past on a website. Conspiracy theory websites of variable quality can rank highly in search engine results alongside those of reputable history establishments. Politically motivated sites can promote selective nationalist history, and revisionist sites can deny that the Holocaust ever even happened. Now, in the face of such narratives, it is clearly not enough that we have access to simply other narratives. There must also be accounts that are founded squarely on the factual record. For those accounts, we depend on history and historians. As Richard J. Evans forcefully argues, there is a massive, carefully empirical literature on the Nazi extermination of the Jews. Clearly, to regard it as fictional and real, or no nearer to historical reality than, say, the work of the revisionists, who deny that Auschwitz ever happened at all, is simply wrong. Here is an issue where evidence really counts, and can be used to establish the essential facts. Auschwitz was not a discourse. It trivializes mass murder to see it as a text. The gas chambers were not a piece of rhetoric. Auschwitz was inherently a tragedy, and cannot be seen either as a comedy or a farce. So, in this series of lessons, we have examined what history is and what history is not. We've considered the epistemological fragility of history as expressed through those inadequate sources of information, through the flawed interpretive methods the historians use, and in those narrative texts that they produce. But we've also shown the importance of history as a corrective to heritage, and we have also celebrated the role of historians as the challengers of nationalist myth and the various nationalist abuses of politicians. Anyway, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. Hopefully there'll be some more soon.
Architecture. texture of amnesia. Scare the people with hysteria. Architecture of amnesia. History lessons disappear.